we live? Not yet. But my brothers, I'm here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My brothers, you already know who it is. I'm the and this the Future Fathers FF podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My brothers, it's another day. It's another recording session. How you been? I'm alright. Work's been okay. How's your day been? How's the youths, missus, partners, family? Mine's alright. Everyone's okay. Things is going alright. Work's good. Hope you ain't got into no bother. Hope no one's troubled you. And most of all, my brothers, I hope you didn't have to beat nobody this week. Yeah. Let's get to it. As I'm sure you can tell from the title right here, my brothers. Now, I've been hearing a lot of this floating around on the internet. And the reason why I wanted to jump into this is because over the weekend, as I'm sure you know, it was Mother's Day. Went and saw my mum, my sisters, my missus. All had a nice little gathering. It was fun. It was nice. It was good. And me and my mum got to talking. I think it was before or after Mother's Day. Could have been before and after. I'm not entirely sure. Probably after. And we were discussing knowing your parents past, so to speak. No, that's what that's yeah, not so to speak. That's what we were discussing, knowing your parents past. Now, I know a bit about my mum and dad's past, not too much, yeah, not gonna lie. There's information that my mum hasn't given me because it's either private information or she just doesn't want to tell me. No, that's entirely up to her. Up to her. It's entirely up to her. I can ask questions, and if they're answered, they're answered. If they're not, then they're not. There's not much I can do or say about that. I've done the most I can do by asking the question in the first place. So, excuse me. Getting past that now, my brothers, you guys, how much do you know about your parents? How much do you know about your grandparents? And ultimately, how much are you willing to tell your children? Now, it's definitely a big thing. It's definitely a massive thing because you don't want your children to make the same mistakes you have. You don't want them to, you do want them to learn from the lessons that you've learned and go forward in life, pushing through barriers that you possibly haven't got to get through or get to and going further in life than you possibly could have. That's all we want for our children, ultimately. That is it. Parting with said information about your own past and history is another kettle of fish because there's things in everyone's past that they'd prefer not to say or not to talk about. There's things in let me turn this up a little bit. There's things in my own past that my boys probably have asked me about and I've maybe not said anything or kind of avoided the question only because the information may be a little bit sensitive or a little bit harsh. Just not ready to tell them that yet. But there are nuggets of information at different points in my life that I've given them possibly before they were ready for. Or not actually, no. Not before they were ready for. Not before they were ready for. But maybe before I felt they should know, if you understand what I mean. I'm going to give you an example. Yeah. At 5 years old, I had to explain to my children what an addict was because on the way home from school, where I live, I'm pretty sure I've told this story already. There was somebody using street pharmaceuticals. There with yeah, We got it out. Using street pharmaceuticals on the stairs in the block of flats where I live. My children were coming up the stairs, and obviously they see them doing that, so they're wondering what's going on. And as I said, this is like 5 and 11. What was it? Five and like, yeah, 5 and a newborn. I don't remember exactly, but one of them was 5. Yeah, they were small. So I've got to explain to them what's going on now. That is an unnecessary age for any adult, any parent to have to explain that to their child. You shouldn't have to be telling your child that at 5 years old. So I'm saying that to say that there's information that you might have to give to your child before you are ready for, or before you think is necessary, as I stated. Now, in life, there are things that you want your child to avoid. Yeah. I am a smoker. Wanted my children, both my boys, to avoid that forever, for existence. Yeah. And they have. One started vaping, and I was so upset. Not at him, but at myself. Because if I wasn't a smoker, it would have been easier for me to be like, no, 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 you shouldn't be doing that. But because I am a smoker, I kind of feel hypocritical in saying you shouldn't do that. But then again, I'm smoking. It's a bit like I used to say to, well, I still do say to myself, brother, you can't really say nothing to them if what you're doing is what you're telling them not to do. Obviously, there are certain downfalls to it. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any benefits to it, none at all. But life is life. Things happen, and unfortunately, we fall into, you know, we fall into certain habits, and we pick up certain things in life that, unfortunately, some of us find harder to put down than others. I won't say we can't, because it's just harder for others. Parting with, let's see, um, parental information. Now, if you're somebody like myself and you had one parent who was a constant in your life and one that wasn't a constant in your life, dealing with that is definitely hard, because on one hand you can explain to your child, you know, what it is and how you grew up, but how much detail do you go into? And being a parent that's learning that, what should I say, that's learned that myself, you try to not go into too much information, too much detail, until you feel that your child is ready. Now, this is where the juggling act comes in, because you may feel your child is not ready, but you don't know how far along in the learning process your child is until they ask you a certain question. And you're like, oh, okay, why did you ask? It's necessary for them to ask, not only for them to learn who they are, but to learn who you are as a person. And when your child knows who you are as a person, it's easier for them to know who they are. It was, I'm not gonna front, it was a struggle for me for a long time, knowing who I was and how to father, how to be a dad, because I hadn't had that example. I at at points in my life, I chose not to ask any questions. That's not to say that I couldn't, because I possibly could have, and I probably have stated this before as well. I possibly could have made a little bit more of an effort to ask questions, to find out, to be around, but it was my choice not to, feeling the way that I felt. My brothers, you know what's good about hindsight? You can see where you make mistakes. You can see the things that you need to learn from. You can learn lessons just from having learned a lesson. Hindsight is brilliant for things like that. But when you're going through it, or when you're in a situation, that hindsight don't exist. You can compare a situation to another one, a similar situation that you have had or have gone through, but it's not going to be exactly the same. As I stated when I started, this was all because my mum and I had a conversation. Now, my mum has been, um, I don't want to say too free with her information because, as I said, we're all human beings. There's certain things you don't want to say about yourself. There's certain things that you don't mind telling your children. Now, that's up to you what you tell your children. I can't tell you what to and not to tell your children. That's your business. That's your past. That ain't got nothing to do with me. But as I stated already as well, how much information are you willing to part with? How much detail are you willing to go into? My mum and I are like my mum is one of my brethren. Hey mum, yeah. My mum's like one of my brethren. I can talk to her. She knows she can ring me and just chat to me about anything. You know, when you need to vent, I've got somebody I can vent to. My mum's got somebody she can vent to. It's a good thing for me and it's a good thing for my mum because it's just how relationships work, especially with your parents. This is how it well. I can't say this is how it should work, but this is how it works for myself and my mum. Excuse me. I need to go and eat something. When my mum has a problem with me or anybody else, my mum can voice how she feels. When I have an issue, I can voice how I feel. Now, a lot of people cannot do that. They cannot do that. If my mum has something to get off of her chest that she hasn't gotten off of her chest for a while, yeah, I can possibly 8 times out of 10 tell that she's got something she needs to say. Now, I'm saying that because when we're talking about somebody's past, it's not as easy to get information out of them. You may have a family member. All right, let's take for instance, if you live with your grandparents, yeah, your parents are not around. It's just your grandparents. You only have your grandparents to go off of to kind of work out and gauge who you are as a person. Yeah. Now I'm talking to all the man them that's been raised by their grandparents. You do. I don't know. I cannot say you do not. Do you? And I would like you to write in, leave a comment. You know, I know you're watching out there, so you may as well. Do you feel like you know who you are, not having your parents around? And are you comfortable with who you are, not having your parents around? Because it's one thing learning who you are from your grandparents. It's another thing learning who you are from your actual parents, the people who birthed you, yeah, the people who created you, so to speak. Because having them around gives you more of an insight into the person you. I truly trust these words, yeah. Having them around makes you see yourself in a different light because, as I stated in previous episodes, I sound like my dad. There's certain things that I do that because I've been around him a little bit more now, I'm like, okay, that's why I do that. Or that's where I get that from. I've been around my mum forever. So anything that I do, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's my mum, definitely. My missus will tell you, the boys will tell you exactly the same thing. Yeah, that's just Big Mum. Big Mum will do that. Big Mum will say that. I do exactly the same things or some similar things. But that's just because I've been around my mum enough to take on certain traits that my mum has. I haven't been around my dad enough to know that. I am around him now enough to see said traits in myself. And hindsight is a good thing because now I'm like, okay, I didn't understand why this or I didn't understand that. Now I'm able to see it and I'm able to think about it. It's easier for me to go to him now and ask him a question because now I'm seeing things and I'm relating it to myself. It's giving me more of an urge to go and ask a question. Whereas before, I didn't want to. Now I'm just like, oh, I'm curious. I'm curious to the point where I'm like, are you really blah, 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 blah? It could be a number of different things. It could be anything. And this, I don't want to say it applies to you as well, but my brothers, if I'm here saying this, If I'm here saying this to you, there's got to be at least one of you out there thinking something similar, or saying to yourself, oh, "Do you know what? That's me. You know, that's me." Don't be scared to go and ask a question. Yeah, I know it's hard. I know it's hard, especially if you're wanting to ask a question to a parent that you haven't been around and you do not know how to approach. I can empathize with that fact that you're not unwilling, but you're unsure of how to approach the situation. But you know what? My nan used to tell me, you don't ask, you don't get. If you ask a question and you don't get the information you're looking for, you're not in a worse position than you were before you asked the question. You didn't have the information before, you don't have it now. It may be a little bit frustrating not getting the answer that you require, or getting an answer at all, but you're not any worse off. So you may as well do the do, man. Like, I'm trying to push forward in myself because I know, do you know what? I don't want to, I don't need to, I don't, you get me? I don't want certain things, certain energies around. So I'm trying to shred that. I'm trying to get rid of it. Man's trying to be in the gym a little bit more and build myself up. So my sons later on in life, when they see themselves and they're like, okay, do you know what? I didn't know I had this resilience in me, but I always see my dad just pushing, just pushing, just pushing. That must be where I get it from. Having me around, yeah, gives them the ability to know a little bit more about themselves because they see me doing things. They know how I am. They know who I am. It's nice for them because anytime they're wondering about themselves, they've got their mum and dad, as I said, to look back on and be like, okay, so I get that from my mum, or I get that from my dad, or my dad used to do. I see my dad do that all the time. Oh, okay, so that's why I do that. I know. And do you know what's funny? A lot of them, a lot of our children may not even notice these things in themselves until they're not around her. Because then they've got to fend for themselves, they will then see things that we've done for them, or around them, or to them. And they will then start doing them themselves because they've got no one else to do them for them. So it's just easy to do things that you've seen be done. My two, they've had to learn. They've been around me and they've been around their mum. So they know who I am and they know who I would hope. I cannot speak for my children. I can only speak for myself. I've done what I feel is necessary for me to impart as much of myself on them for them to know exactly who they are to go through life, not questioning themselves on whether they know something, not questioning themselves on why they've done something, not questioning themselves on why they're behaving the way they behave. Sorry, because a lot of us don't understand, and I'm talking about men in particular. Yeah, a lot of us may not understand our behavior patterns, our temperament, even our thinking and our thought process because we just don't know our dads. I can almost, I don't want to say I can almost guarantee, but I can, I can, what's a word? What's a word? I can summarize, yeah, that most of us that were not around our fathers when we were younger, yeah, and don't know why we're angry or smart or have a thought process where we're very, very driven to thinking about others or ourselves. I'm very sure in saying that you'd probably find that your father had those traits in him. Even though you were not around him, even though you were not around him, you still have picked up those traits because they're part of his makeup. So now they're a part of you. A lot of us shy away from even wanting to ask those dads who weren't around, or those parents, those mums, why why am I so angry? Because you know what? I got a bad temper. And you know what's funny? I can almost this is me I'm talking about now. I can almost guarantee if I was to ask my dad, yeah, why I had a bad temper, yeah, he'd probably say to me, "Do you know what? Boy, I've got a bad temper too." I can almost guarantee that. I can almost guarantee you that if I was to ask my dad, "Do you know what?" Or if I was, yeah, if I was to say this to him, "Do you know what? I've got a really good memory for films in particular." He'd probably say, "Oh yeah, do you know, I actually remember things very well on blah blah blah." Now it doesn't have to be exactly the same specific thing. I'm just talking about a trait. Um, for me, I only need to watch a film once and I remember it for the next how much forever years. Like I do not know how it works. I do not know why. My mum is very similar. She can watch something and yet it's just locked in. Probably my mum I get it from, because as I said, I spent more time around my mum to know these things. Now I know why I like sci-fi so much. My mum's a massive sci-fi fan, massive science fiction fan. But I can almost guarantee that I get my physical drive. Well, obviously, I've been around my mum, but I've seen my mum's physical drive. But just that that work mentality where I'm gonna do this. I've got that from both of them, and I know that because I've been around my mum. But I've also been privy to seeing how my dad works now. I've heard it from my sister. My brothers, 1 second. Hey, you alright, dude? Good. Cool. See, big one again. See, and he knows me. As I said, you know me. Lots of things about my past and history, and yeah, yeah. See, he knows. He knows. Random tab. Cool. All right, dude. See you in a bit. Love them boys, I do. Yeah, see, he get, he gets to know who I am. He gets to ask me questions. As I said, I've asked. I've been able. I've not been able. I've heard it from my sister. Oh, he's always at work. He's working. Is this? Is that? And then it was weird for me because I always used to see him going on holiday. Now, my brothers, you know what the funniest thing is? Yeah, as a man, I understand that if you got issues and you got problems, you've made mistakes. You might not want to be around the people that you've made mistakes with. If you don't have children around you like that, yeah, you got though. You're at work. You've got a house. You got people to look after you or look after, i.e., your parents. Like you got stuff to do. You got a life. Man, still got to live. And this is the thing. Do you know what? Our parents are not going to be here forever. If you've got an issue with your parent and you're unable to discuss that, that is entirely up to you. If you've got an issue with your parent and you can discuss it, I urge you to do that. If you've got an issue with your parent and there's no need to discuss it, and both parties know, do you know what? It's been a long time now. It's kind of all right. If you can actually talk, that's even better. I'm not going to tell you how to do anything or why you should be doing something or even if you should. But just having access to that well ball of knowledge, that being, having access, just being around said person is enough to make you feel a little bit more um a little bit more, I don't want to say, a little bit more adequate about yourself. You have more information. You feel you have more of an assessment on your own being, just because you have access to one part of what makes you. Two parents, one child, maybe more children, depends on how many you got in your family. But let's just take a two parent and one child situation. Two parents, one child. That child doesn't have access to one parent, they only have access to the other. Throughout life, there will be certain struggles that child will go through, not knowing why they do certain things or why they don't handle certain situations. If they had access to both parties, they are more well informed about why they do things. Simple, why they're unable to handle things. And not only that, they'll have two people giving them information on why and how to deal with things. So, my brothers, I don't know about you, but I'm trying to do a lot better. If that means I got to free up some information about who I am, what I've done, where I've been, things I've done, people I've been around to my children, so they're more well informed about their dad, I'm going to do that. My children are probably a lot older than yours, maybe younger than yours as well. So it's entirely up to you. My brothers, I don't know what kind of information you're putting out there to your children. I hope it's all good information. It can't always all be good. You have to tell them about the bad things. Don't hide them, don't shield them. Not for too long anyway. Yeah. It's all relative, it's all necessary. We're all trying to fill up their cups. My brothers, as usual, you know what it is. Yeah. Please, before I go, I'm going to mention to you the podcast is available on all major platforms, as I'm sure you know. We're available Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Yeah, you can find us on Instagram, future_fathersFF and Say Nay Official. My brothers, please, 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 always stay tuned to the YouTube channel. You know where it is, yeah? As it says there, like, share, subscribe, do the flicky button. You know exactly what that one is. Post notifications so when there's a new video, you're notified. My brothers, I beg you. It's the Future Fathers FF podcast. I beg you, stay well and stay blessed.